Hello everyone, this is Joyce Evera, and I'll be your discussant in today's subject. And our discussion is all about assessment and macro skill. And this will focus on the different kinds of language tests. So to start this discussion, let me just define first to you what is a test. I know you are familiar already with the word test, and basically, test is a tool or instrument that is used to obtain data about specific trait or characteristics. So meaning to say, it is used to measure the performance or the skill level or knowledge of a learner in a specific subject matter. Now, how about language test? What do we mean by language test? So it is a practice and a study of evaluating the proficiency in using a particular language effectively. So this test is more concerned with the development and analysis of a test. And the purpose of a language test is to determine a person's knowledge and ability in the language and to discriminate that person's ability from that of others. And under language test, we have different kinds of language test. We have here five kinds of language tests based on purposes. We have proficiency test, achievement test, diagnostic test, placement test, and aptitude test. So let's have the first one, which is the proficiency test. When we say proficiency test, it provides an opportunity to test the language skills of the learners when the testing objectives are tied not to the instructional objectives but to abilities in a language regardless of any specific instructions in it. In short, proficiency tests designed to measure people's ability in a language regardless of any training they may have in that language. Meaning to say, this test is used to measure someone. It could be a candidate or a student level of skill in a language. So for instance, a student grew up speaking in English at home or took an English lesson. Then a proficiency test will score or should score that student regardless on whatever skill or training she or he have obtained in the past. Another thing is that this test is based on a specification of what candidates have to be able to do in a language in order to be considered proficient. So the content of this test is more general and, as I've said earlier, it is not based on any course or program but focused on general or the overall language ability of the students. And when we say proficient, it is having a sufficient command of language for a purpose because proficiency test functions either it is for a purpose or for more general purposes. Next, we have achievement test. So when we see achievement test, it is administered to provide some indication of whether the instructional goals are being met. It is also based directly on the instructional content of the course. In short, this achievement test measures how successful individual student, group of students, or the course themselves have been in achieving objectives. Meaning to say, this achievement test is used to determine the developed skills or knowledge of the students in a particular course, and it is also contrast to proficiency test because this kind of tests are directly related to language courses. We have two kinds of achievement test. We have the final achievement test and the progress achievement test. When we say final achievement test, it is used at the end of the course. It is written by Ministries of Education or the official examining board or the members of teaching institution. Meaning to say, these people or personnel are the only allowed in making a final achievement test. Aside from that, final achievement test is also a syllabus content standard, which means it is based directly on detailed course syllabus or on the book and other materials used by our teachers. And one of the best example for this kind of test is the final examination. Another kind of achievement test is the progress achievement test. When we say progress achievement test, it is measure the progress that students are making. It is also based on a short-term objectives. And one way on measuring the progress of the students would be repeatedly to administer final achievement tests, meaning to say, the more the scores of the student increase, the more progress they made. And it also contributes to formative assessment. And the perfect example for this kind of test are the quizzes, assignments, research, and projects. Next kind of language test, we have diagnostic test. When we say diagnostic test, it is prepared to discover the strengths and weaknesses of a language learners, and also it ascertain what learning skills need to take. So this test is a very important or helpful to the teacher and learner in identifying the problem that the learner have with the language. So for example, in a classroom situation, at the beginning or at the start of the course or a lesson, our teacher give us learner a diagnostic test to see or to determine what areas of language need to be in the syllabus. And one example for this kind of test is the pre-test, which is given for students to gather information about what students know about the specific topic. Next, we have the placement test. When we say placement test, it is administered to make decisions about where the student should be placed within a language instructional program. And it is also used to assign students to classes of different level. Meaning to say, through this test, the student will be assigned to a class or a program that is appropriate to the level of his or her proficiency. And one of the best example of placement test is the entrance examination. So through the result of the student's entrance examination, it will be assessed whether he or she passed on a particular program or not. Lastly, we have aptitude test. So when we say aptitude test, it seeks to provide some indication of an individual's ability to learn a language, and it is also designed to determine an individual's skills or propensity to succeed in a given activity. Meaning to say, this aptitude test does not test knowledge or intelligence, only a particular skill. So therefore, it is not a test for which a student can study. Unlike achievement tests, which are concerned with looking a person's level of knowledge, aptitude tests are instead focused on determining how capable of a person might be or performing a certain task. For instance, a student might take an aptitude test suggesting that they are good with numbers and data. So therefore, the result might imply that a career as an accountant or maybe a banker would be a good choice for that specific student. Okay, so we're done already with the kinds of language tests based on purpose. Let us now proceed with the kind of language test based on response. First, we have subjective test. When we say subjective test, it is a test in which the learner's ability or performance are judged by examiner's opinion or judgment. It is also required the students to form their own original answers. Meaning to say, subjective test requires the student or the test taker to form or to create their own original answers based on their understanding of the topic. So the teacher here cannot predetermine any single response as the only correct answer to the specific questions that is given, since the subjective test has no right or correct answers. And the best example for this kind of test is by creating an essay or the essay form. And for the last part of our discussion, we have the objective test. So this test is a test which learners' ability are measured using specific set of answers, and the scores are according to a right answers. Meaning to say, objective test will allow the students or the test taker to select or to choose a correct answers from the given choices. And in this kind of test, there is usually one correct answers for a given questions. Therefore, any person who has an answer key can mark the correct answer objectively. And there are examples for this kind of test. We have the fill in the blanks, the enumeration, identification, the multiple choice test, and the matching type. So that's all from my report. I hope you learned something from it. So thank you and have a great day, everyone.